Hello again, adventurers, welcome to our exciting video. As you know, we left Norway yesterday and today we arrived in Austria where we're gonna be climbing on some extreme via Ferrata. So let's get into the vlog. Right, and here we arrived to this parking near the village Grisleten, which is about 100 kilometers away from Vienna city. From here we have a long hike to the beginning of Via Ferrata, maybe about 2 hours. Let's go! The first few kilometers the path is crisscrossing through this bigger dirt road and it's also quite steep. We just met some guys with the Via Ferrata set and they said it's another hour till the beginning of Via Ferrata and then another 2 hours one way. It'd be really tight to make it before darkness. As you can see, this hike is pretty cool. It follows through this nice pine forest following the red sign. Over here we got to the crossroad of different routes where you can hike, but we're gonna keep going on the left the way to Hutsteig, which is the name of this particular ferrata. Over here I think you can see the hill where we should get up on, and Ferrata should be somewhere over here, but it looks pretty steep. Now the path got out of the forest and as you can see we are following through this rocky field. And over here we already spotted some people climbing up the ferrata, which looks really steep. And this ferrata is C/D level, which is pretty difficult, so hopefully you won't have too much trouble climbing up. Right, so we had a quick lunch and now we are putting on the helmets and Via Ferrata sets and we are ready to go. Alright, so here we are at the beginning of Ferrata and it's already pretty difficult, especially for Sanya. So we're a little bit worried if it's like this the whole way, we wouldn't be able to make it on time. And soon over here we would have to climb with this ladder up this steep wall, which looks pretty gnarly. Alright, and here we are beginning to climb this ladder, which is actually not so difficult, but the problem is sometimes some of the steps are missing because this Ferrata is quite old. Sometimes you have to take a bigger step up, and also if you have a fear of heights, it could be quite problematic because we are getting pretty high over here. And this part over here was the most scariest for me because you have to traverse the rock and there are not many good holds. And plus you have like 100-meter almost vertical drop underneath you, which looks pretty scary. And for me, climbing on Via Ferrata is more scary than climbing on top rope on the rock climbing, because if you fall on Via Ferrata, you're falling down like 2 meters, so you can easily scratch yourself up. And after you fall, your Ferrata is not so safe to use anymore, so you pretty much can't fall anymore. Alright, and now we got through to the steepest part. Now we got to this little platform so we can look around and enjoy the views finally. And people that are going through here told us that there is just one more difficult part and after that it should be pretty easy. Hopefully it won't be as gnarly as this part that we just did. So after climbing that more easier part, we got up to another platform, which is much bigger. And for some part, there are not even steel ropes for the Via Ferrata anymore. And here we have another little traverse, but it doesn't look so scary because you don't have such a big vertical drop underneath you. And here we're going up through another ladder, so as you can see, with more experience, you are not as afraid anymore. I'm even recording with the camera here. Alright, and here we're starting to climb what they said is the hardest part of this Via Ferrata, which is called a chimney. It doesn't look so steep anymore or high off the ground. But the problem is that it's pretty narrow like a chimney, so you don't have much space to climb, so it's technically pretty challenging. But for me this wasn't as scary because there wasn't a big vertical drop like in the first part. Alright, and here we got up to another platform with this little monument, and we got a view down here. So some people actually go down through this rock field. You can see the path down there, which is actually much quicker than going around through the woods. Alright, and here we're beginning the second half of Ferrata, which shouldn't be as difficult. And as you can see, for quite a bit of it, we're just hiking and scrambling, we're not even climbing. Compared to down there where you had some of this part, the grade D, I would say this one is maybe A or B level. So down there you can see the little platform viewpoint where we've been about half an hour ago. And then the path followed up through this little canyon, which was mostly hiking / scrambling. So as you can see, it's still pretty easy climbing. You have a lot of space, a lot of good holds. And it's not very steep at all. It's just that on the left side you have quite a big drop. As I say, it's maybe B or B plus level the most of difficulty. The whole Ferrata is classified C/D, and I think it's because the first parts were maybe even E difficulty. Alright, and here I made it to the top. I think it took us around 2 hours to climb it. Definitely the first part took us the most of the time. If you experience climbing, you can make it even in 1 hour. Now we need to hike down, probably through those forests on the other side. Now we want to make it to the top of Hashtag Hill, which will be just a few minutes away. Alright, and here we made it to the top of Hashtag, 1783 meters, so it's pretty high. Got a nice views down here with the village where we came from. And down here we can see some people going down, probably through some shortcuts. But we're not gonna follow some unmarked path that we don't know, not to get stuck on some cliff in the darkness. And over here we can see tables with the different hiking options. You can hike some ways on the right, but this time we're gonna go on the left. Alright, and over here we can see the passage that some people make a shortcut down. So it looks pretty steep, and I think there is lots of loose rocks, so it's quite dangerous if there is more of you going there. And from this point you can't see the Ferrata where we've been climbing. I think it's on the other side of these cliffs over here. And then we got up somewhere on top over here. And somewhere over here is the beginning of the Ferrata, so you can see how the first part is steep, so it's definitely not something for beginners. Over here you can see the reflection of sunset on the hill over there. So from now we have about half an hour till the darkness. And over here I got to some cottage, and from here you can do more hikes. Unfortunately we didn't come here on time to see the sunset, but we can come back here to do those other hikes. Okay, so we're going back. It's almost dark, 6:30, and it's still pretty warm down here. And my impressions of the Ferrata, it was Definitely hard at the beginning. It was grade D or more even, and many of the holds were like broken, so it was even harder than it was before. And after that, it was after halfway point, when you see that little chapel there, then it's much easier. But if you're a beginner beginner Ferrata guy, I would not recommend this hike, this Ferrata, because the beginning was really tough and you could just fall down pretty easily. What's your impressions?
It was good. I challenged myself.
But
We all challenge ourselves. And now I'm happy.
if you're a beginner, take at least how many? 7 hours? No, keď si začiatočník, aspoň 7. At least 7 hours, because the hike to there is minimum 2 hours. So you have 4 hours of hiking and at least 3 hours of Ferrata. So it's a pretty tough one, but good that we made it. And
as always, stay healthy and stay adventurous.